Boys, I'm going to go through our question 3 from the assessment, which was evaluate the elements to be considered when designing a training session, and this is 12 marks. I've underlined the key term of evaluate. We're talking about the elements that must be considered when designing a training session. So it's evaluate the elements of a training session and why they must be considered. We're going to have a look at our key term of evaluate first of all. It says here you need to make a judgment based on the criteria determine the value of. So you need to make a judgment about the elements of a training session to be considered. Why should they be considered? Why should they be included in your training session? The second thing I'd like to draw your attention to is this has come straight from the Board of Studies, from their assessment syllabus and their assessment rubrics. It says here that in section 2 there are 5 options. Students answer the questions on the 2 options they have studied. There are 2 questions on each option. The first one's worth 8 marks, may contain parts. The second question is worth 12 marks, which is what I'm talking about here, with an expected length of response of around 3.5 examination writing booklet pages or 500 words. So for this answer, being a 12 marker, as it is here, you need to be writing about 500 words. So the quality of your response needs to be detailed. You need to have supporting examples in there as well. So there's a few things that are required in this response. Let's go and have a look at this sample answer first of all, and let me just start off by saying this is just a sample answer. I'm not saying this is the best answer. I'm not saying that it's the worst answer. This is just a sample that I've given you to show you how your answer could be constructed. First of all, the elements to be considered are crucial. There's his evaluation when designing an effective training program. Made it very clear there's his evaluation. Health and safety considerations are vital. Reinforced the evaluation. To be considered, he's given the example to go through and talks about what the coach need to do for the health and safety, even speaks about the environment further down. He's mentioned the dot point area, the syllabus area. He's reinforced the key point. His understanding is correct, and he's reinforced it with examples. Providing an overview of the session, underlined, set out clearly, to athletes is essential. There's his reinforcement of his evaluation. Talks about it, provides an overview, gives the goals and what they're going to achieve, gives some examples of coach will go through. In this case, talking about practicing defensive skills for basketball. They're the examples that he's given. The coach is going to give that information. Warm up and cool down is a vital aspect. There's his reinforcement. He then goes and breaks down different types of warm-ups, gives his examples, and he even talks about cooling down with some examples. So he's covered both warm-up and cool down. Skill instruction and practice is imperative when designing a training program. He's reinforced his initial evaluation. He's given the information and an example to go through it, again for basketball, because obviously he enjoys his basketball, that shows he has an understanding of that element of the training session and why it's important. Conditioning is an instrumental element to be considered when designing a training session. Love the fact that he's used some words from the question here to reinforce his evaluation. This refers to the endurance and fitness of athletes. For example, conditioning in basketball is important so the players can run up and down the court for a long period of time. Gives his example, and he talks about suicides in his example here. And the last one is evaluation is a crucial aspect. So again, he's evaluated, crucial in designing a training session. Some really strong words there to reinforce his evaluation and his position on it. Gone through and explain what it is, and he gives his example. About the end of the training session, the coach may talk to the players. It's pretty simple. He's got the 6 key points from the syllabus. He's evaluated at the start. He's reinforced. Some boys may not have evaluated at the start, but they were still pretty consistent in evaluating throughout. That was still okay. It's not as great, and I'd prefer you to have an evaluation at the start. That's what you need to work on, but it still gives a pretty decent answer. My areas of concern for this response is that boys fell into the trap of an English introduction. There are 6 elements of training sessions, and they went and listed all 6 of them. You don't need to do that. You just need to come up with an evaluation at the start, make your point very clear, and then move on. Get into the first area. The warm-up and the cool-down. A lot of students forgot to include cool-down because they'd spent so much time writing about the warm-down. The other part too, in our marking criteria, which I'm going to go and show you the marking criteria now, if you look underneath, there's a few points here. To get a 10 or a 12, the marking criteria, and I've bolded it, says makes a judgment regarding the elements to be considered when designing a training session. The second one is down here for 7 to 9, provides information about the elements to be considered when designing a training session. So if you don't evaluate every area of this answer, You can't get 10. That's what you've got to keep in mind, that you must be evaluated. And this is that higher order questioning we're asking you to think about. You've got to be able to make a judgment. If you don't, you fall straight down into the 7 to 9 category. The other part in it says he presents ideas in a clear and logical way. Now, I didn't pick on people if they didn't have the, if the elements weren't in their order. For example, you're not going to do your overview first and you're not going to do your warm-up at the end. You should follow a path. From what you're going to do, your health and safety, into your overview, into your warm-up and cool-down, even to your skill instruction, your practice, your conditioning, and then your evaluation. That's how it should flow. But that's presenting ideas in a clear and logical way. So it's something for boys to keep in mind. And also include examples for each aspect. As I've already mentioned, you had to evaluate, and if you didn't, the best you could get was a 9. Some boys gave great answers with all the areas covered, with supporting examples, very, very good, but didn't evaluate. They can't get any more than 9. Overall, I thought the evaluation was quite good from both classes. Some of the key terms that we use, words along the lines of beneficial, vital, must, important, imperative. They're strong, descriptive words to tell you this is my evaluation, my judgment. And the examples given by students, which is the other aspect of the key of the marking criteria, were also very good by students. So well done. The marks for this were quite high, and I was pretty impressed with the quality of work that was given from all students. So well done, boys. Let's keep this up leading into our trial exams.